guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is a really exciting video because I'm going to be talking you through 10 common myths about Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome and debunking them with you. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Firstly, if you don't know what EDS is, I've made a whole video about Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome and my personal story with it, so check that out before you watch this. Now, number one, the most common one we hear is that Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome is a rare hereditary condition. Now, this is a half truth because it is hereditary, meaning it's something you're born with. It's not something you develop later on in life. However, it is not as rare as we once thought. While there are some rarer types of EDS, such as the vascular type, the hypermobile type is a lot more common than we think. And something that really stuck with me is my Ehlers-Danlos doctor, my consultant, who diagnosed me, said that Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is not rare, it's rarely diagnosed. It's just something that I always think about, and I think he's right. Which leads on to the hypermobile type being the most common type of EDS. As far as we know, there are 15 types of Ehlers-Danlos syndromes. I think one was more recently discovered, and there are gene mutations that determine which type you have. Hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is the most commonly diagnosed that hasn't had a known gene mutation found for it. So if you do genetic testing and have the classic type, for example, then there is a gene mutation that should show up. Genetic testing isn't always as clear cut as that, but gene mutations have been found for the other types of EDS. If they don't find one of those gene mutations, you are automatically put into the hypermobile type. It is under researched. There's not much understood about it. If they can't give you the genetic testing for whatever reason, or they just don't understand the condition, they might just automatically put you into the hypermobile type as well. So there are various reasons why it is the most diagnosed, but we do not know if it really is the most common type of EDS, especially the fact that we have only discovered 15 types, and there are most probably many more other types of EDS that are just undiscovered, or that people have been misdiagnosed with because of lack of funding, under research, lack of doctors' knowledge, and so on. The second myth is that if you don't have stretchy skin, you don't have EDS. Now, that couldn't be further from the truth. EDS is a condition of faulty collagen. It doesn't only affect the skin, it affects your bones, your internal organs, your respiratory system, dysautonomia, your nerves, and so on. It is not a condition that only affects the skin. While the skin can be affected, not everybody has stretchy skin. I have stretchy skin in my arms, but other than that, I don't really have that stretchy skin. Stretchy skin is most commonly classified with the classic type of EDS or the classic-like type of EDS, although stretchy skin can be found all across the board of EDS. It is such a vast condition that it differs from person to person. The other most common thing we hear, which is unfortunate, that it mostly comes from the people closest to us and our doctors, is that the pain is all in our heads. Now, those of us with EDS know that it is mostly an invisible condition, meaning we look okay on the outside, but inside we are in so much pain. You can imagine that if our joints are dislocating, if we have organ problems, if we have lots of things going on internally, such as gastrointestinal issues, asthma, whatever it is, that we are going to live with pain. It's not necessarily going to be visible to other people, but it's something that we experience and we feel. And a lot of the time, when you go and see a medical professional, if you don't look ill or look like you're in pain, they often say it's all in your head. The other thing with EDS is that there is no clear-cut testing for it. You might be lucky to get genetic testing, but if you get a doctor who doesn't understand hypermobility, who doesn't understand EDS, they are not going to do that. And more than likely, they'll just tell you that you're stressed or depressed or something like that, which is what actually happened to me. And I did years of therapy, and it wasn't until 14 years later that I found a doctor who recognized EDS in me. Your symptoms are real. What you feel is real. If you feel pain, it is not in your head. Change your doctor, find somebody else who will listen to you and give you the appropriate testing. Number 4 is that you're just clumsy. You don't have EDS, you're just clumsy. Clumsiness is a huge part of Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome because your whole body is made up of collagen and connective tissue, and that means that we have a lot of instability in our body and our joints. So if we trip over a lot, it's probably because we have unstable ankles or knees. If we bump into doors, it's probably because we have POTS and therefore we have dizziness. POTS is a comorbidity of Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. It is also a condition on its own, but a lot of people with EDS, such as myself, have postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which is a form of dysautonomia. Dropping things, lack of spatial awareness, brain fog, all that is the reason for clumsiness in EDS. You're not just clumsy, you just have a lot of stuff going on. Number 5 is that EDS isn't serious. You're just flexible. That's all it is. You're just flexible. I can't tell you the amount of times people have said to me, oh, you're so lucky you're flexible. I wish I was that flexible. Oh, it's so cool. Well, yes, being able to do this is somewhat of a fun party trick. It means my fingers often dislocate. So I was just doing a lunge, and typical EDS, my foot just dislocated and there was the loudest freaking click, and I'm not even sure if it's fully back. Ah, did you hear that? Oh, I clicked it back. Oh, fuck. Being flexible is one thing and being hypermobile is a whole other thing. Quite often they get clumped into the same category and they are not the same thing. Flexibility is something that is developed over time. Some people are naturally more flexible than others, but being hypermobile is having unstable muscles and joints, including unstable internal organs, meaning you could have organ prolapses, you could have problems with the valves in your heart because the connective tissue is too flexible and therefore doesn't contract and expand the way it should in a normal person. While being flexible can be a good thing, being hypermobile is not. There are lots of things we have to put into place to make sure that our joints don't come out of place, that we don't get dislocations, subluxations, that we keep our allergies in check, bunch of medications to make sure that we don't have flare-ups, and it is just a really, really complicated condition. Number 6 is that genetic testing can be used to identify EDS. While this is true in some cases where the gene has been found, it's not always the case. You might have a type of EDS that has yet to be discovered, or you might have hypermobile EDS, which doesn't have a known mutation as of yet, therefore nothing will show up, or your hospital might not have the funding, the research, your doctor might not have the knowledge for genetic testing, and as my EDS doctor told me, just like any testing out there, it is not 100% accurate and it's not available to everybody. So a lot of the time, EDS is diagnosed through the Baton criteria, through going over years of your life, through asking you a series of questions, through family history. Is a lengthy process, It took me 14 years to get diagnosed, so it takes a really, really long time. Myth number 7 is that there are no treatments available for EDS. My GP knows I have Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, and the amount of times he's told me, there is nothing that I can do. You have to learn to live with it, just stay positive. Oh, you can't just be positive when you have all these things going on. Anyway, there is a bunch of treatments that can help EDS, which is why it's so important to get it diagnosed. For example, using mobility aids such as crutches, wheelchairs, knee braces, being aware of your body, so that one of the main things I do is I'm cautious when I turn, because I know my knees and my ankles are unstable. Therefore, if I turn a certain way, they will pop out of place. Walking down the stairs properly. These are all things that need to be taught to you so that you can know how to walk a certain way, what mobility aids are right for you. There is physiotherapy where you can strengthen those parts of your body that are weaker. There are medical devices that you can use, such as pacemakers, stomas if you have problems with the toilet area. There are pills that you can take for things like POTS, insomnia, for chronic pain. So yes, there are many, many treatments available for EDS. Number 8 is that you have to be tall and thin to have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Being tall and slim is actually more commonly identified with Marfan syndrome, which is another connective tissue disorder. Similar to EDS, but not the same. While you can be tall and thin and have EDS, you can equally be short and stubby and have EDS. There is no specific body type or look or race or gender for EDS. You can be anyone and have EDS. Myth number 9 is that it only affects your joints. That is not true. While a lot of people with EDS can have things like arthritis, osteoporosis, inflammation in their joints due to the fact that they're so unstable or that they pop out a lot, it is a condition of the connective tissue. Our whole body is made up of connective tissue. Our skin, our bones, our organs, everything in our body is made up of connective tissue. Therefore, it can affect multiple systems in your body. In some people, it could be extremely mild. In some people, it can be very severe to the point of not being able to feed yourself. There are some people who have such severe EDS that they can't eat anymore and they need to be fed through a feeding tube.
It can be fine one day and then, well, even the same day, within a few hours, being resourced in the hospital.
Part of the reason why I feel a lot of doctors don't believe us is because we have lots of symptoms that almost feel like they don't go together, but then when you know it's EDS, it all makes perfect sense. But if you're uneducated about the topic or not aware of it, it can be really confusing. It can affect dysautonomia, temperature regulation, it can give you nausea, it can give you insomnia, it can give you so many things. And finally, the last myth I'm going to talk about is that EDS is passed on from parent to parent. While this can happen, it is not necessary. It is just like any other genetic condition where the parent could have the recessive gene, and when they have you, it is passed on to you. Or maybe your parent has it and then you don't get it, your children don't get it, but their children get it. There is also something called de novo. It is where there is no gene in the family, but then there is a mutation in the uterus during pregnancy, and therefore you develop EDS in the uterus, even though there is no gene in the family. There is still lots of studies that need to be done on EDS, and there is no clear-cut answer. That's me debunking 10 of the most common myths about EDS in my opinion. Let me know, are there any I missed out, or leave them in the comments. Thanks for being here. Bye. I'll see you in the next one.